So last class, one of your classmates sent me the audio recording. I think even that was not recorded properly. If I had spoken some 20 words, I guess only one word was recorded in that. So I guess I will start with, I mean, whatever I did in the last class. This was done in the last to last class. So this I was supposed to start in the last class, which somehow couldn't materialize. So I will just start from this. So in this figure, and there's that data warehousing multi-tier architecture. As you can see, you have to do some pre-processing steps, that is extract, cleaning, transform, load and refresh. So that they have given what exactly it is, just one line explanation. So data extraction means it's like gathering multiple data from heterogeneous external source, that is extraction. Cleaning means it's like detect errors and noisy data and rectify them. Transformation is convert from one format to another. Load is like which is used for views, like to give a view to the customer, like some maybe in terms of graphs and to check the integrity, etc. Refreshes, update. Maybe this particular thing you will understand more when you in your distributed systems when you learn the consistency protocols that might come little later. But anyways, it's just like when you click the refresh button, whatever is there in the original database or data warehouse or a repository will be propagated. All the changes will be propagated to the other repositories, from the main repository to other sub repositories. So that is your refresh thing. Okay. And this I had told last class thing also. It's like metadata is like something data about the data. So in this there is nothing much. It's like what a metadata repository should basically consist of. There are some 2 to 3 mandatory things, like it should contain data about the performance, data about the business. It's like few algorithms which is used for summarization to get something like reports or graphs. And it's like operational metadata. Operational metadata means it's like what the history of the data, okay, which is used to monitor information. And it's like description of data warehouse structure, which includes your schema, hierarchies, derived data, etc. So these are the few things which are included in your metadata repository. So the next major thing is data cube. What exactly do you mean by data cube? So data cube basically allows the data to be modeled and viewed in multi dimensions. Okay. So this data cube is defined by using your dimensions as well as your facts, these two things. So dimensions, what exactly do you mean by dimension? It's like there are dimensions are nothing but entities with respect to which an organization wants to keep a record. For example, sales is a dimension. So sales is one dimension which an organization would like to keep record on, because how much sales in which month, how much sales is achieved, or maybe which item is getting sold more, or which item is not getting sold more. So all these things might be of importance to a particular organization. So if it's like if the area of interest is sales, so the dimensions with respect to sales might be time, item, branch and location. So these four might be the dimensions with respect to the sales database. And each dimension there is something called dimensional table which is associated with it. And the dimensional table will have additional attributes. It's like as I told you, item is one dimension. So if there is a dimensional table for item, so it might contains attributes such as item name, brand, and type, etc. which gives further details about the particular dimension. So the next thing is something called your multi-dimensional data model. So this usually is organized around a central theme. So central theme or something like area of interest. So here, if you consider sales, so sales is the central theme. So this particular theme, the central theme is represented. So the facts are nothing but measures. So measures, what I meant is, for example of facts could be dollars sold. That is the sales amount in dollars. Next is units sold might be one more example. That is the number of units sold and amount budgeted. So all these are numeric measures which are known as facts. So this particular example is a 2D view, like just a table. The two dimensions are time and item. The same thing can be viewed in a 3D thing. That is the 3D things. I mean, the three dimensions are item, time, and location here. Okay. So if you want to view the same thing, this is with respect to table. But if you want to view the same thing in form of a cube, this is how it looks like, the 3D cube for the same table. 3D, I mean, the data cube is one thing which comes in handy, especially in data warehouse. We will see some of the operations which could be performed on a data cube shortly in the next few slides. So this is 3D view. Suppose you want to see a 4D view of the same table. Say, apart from time, location, and item, you want to see the supplier information. So that becomes a 4D thing. Okay. So this is a 4D data cube representation of the sales data. The fourth dimension being your item. I mean supplier. But one thing you have to remember here is it's like if you want to display any n-dimensional data, this is for example 4-dimensional data. If you want to display any n-dimensional data, you can display it as a series of n-1 dimensional data. Okay. So here 4D is displayed as a series of 3D data. Okay. So this is one thing, maybe one thing you have to remember, that you may display any n-dimensional data as a series of n-1 dimensional cubes. So this table 4.2 and 4.3 shows the data at different degrees of summarization, and the same thing can be shown as a part of your data cube, which we refer to as cuboid. Okay. So given a set of dimensions, we can generate a cuboid for each of the possible subdimensions, okay, subsets of the dimensions. So the result would be a lattice of cuboids, something like this. So this three are anyways known to you, that 1D, 2D, and 3D. So there is something called base cuboid, okay, which is the lowest level of summarization, and there is something called as apex cuboid or 0D cuboid, which holds the highest level of summarization. This apex cuboid is usually represented as all. Okay. All means it contains everything and anything with respect to that particular subject. Here it is sales. The next is, if you remember, I had told you there are two things, that is stars in your what is the database normal DBMS. It is ER model, that is entity relationship model schema. So here it is star, snowflakes, and fact. If you remember, I guess we had studied it in here somewhere. See, database designed for OLTP is ER based. For OLAP is star or snowflake. This we had studied. So we will see what exactly they are. So if you see this particular figure, this is the star schema. So this is the most common schema which is used for designing your data warehouse. So this particular schema contains one large central table, this particular thing which is visible here, that is called a fact table. Okay. So it contains the bulk of data which no redundancy. So each of the thing is unique. And it also contains a set of smaller tables which are known as the dimensional tables. So there will be one dimensional table for each dimension. Okay. So if you can see, this particular entire schema graph represents a starburst. Okay. So it's we call it as, I mean, the name star schema. So if you can see this particular example diagram, it shows the star schema for sales database. So sales are considered, I mean, we consider four dimensions, that is time, item, branch, and location. So the schema contains a central fact for the sales, so which contains keys to each of the four dimensions. If you can see, time key, item key, branch key, and location key. So there is a key for each of the four dimensions. Okay. And there is two measures, that is dollar sold and unit sold. These two are the measures or facts. The next schema is snowflake schema. So which is nothing but a variant of your star schema model. But here the main difference is some dimensional tables are normalized. Okay. Normalization here happens by splitting the data into additional tables. If you can see location table, so everything is in a single dimensional table. But in Snowflake, city, the information about city and below are in one table, the city and above in the hierarchy, like city, state, and country, are in a different dimensional table, that is city dimensional table. So this, the data is split, okay, to reduce the redundancies. So this is called normalization. Okay. The major difference is that the dimensional table of Snowflake model is normalized to reduce the redundancies. That is one thing. So the advantage is it is easier to maintain, and uh, it has been proved that it saves storage space also. So the next is your fact constellation schema. So it's like there might be few sophisticated applications or complex applications which might require, I mean, there might be a requirement that you have to share multiple dimensional table with each other. So it's like to achieve something like this, we can use fact constellation table. Okay. So this kind of schema, you can view it as a collection of stars. It's like collection of star schemas. So this particular schema is named fact constellation or galaxy schema. So it's also called as your galaxy schema. Galaxy. schema or fact constellation means the same thing. So it's like, see, there are two facts tables in this particular figure, that is sales, this one, and shipping, this one. Okay, there are two fact tables, and the sales table, that is this particular thing, is similar to your star schema, that is this. And this shipping table has 5 dimensions, that is item key, time key, shipper key, from and to. And there are two measures or facts, that is called your dollars and cost. Okay. So the unique feature with respect to the fact constellation schema is it allows dimensional table to be shared between two fact tables. So you can see that the dimension tables for time, item, that is this particular thing, and location, that is this, are shared between sales and shipping fact tables. So if you can see in the shipping table, there is three things, that is item, time, and shipper, item, time, and location part. And here also, if you can see, there is item, time, and location. So these three dimensions are shared between two fact tables. So that is one unique feature of your fact constellation. So the next thing is the role of concept hierarchies. So as the name itself suggests, the concept hierarchy defines a sequence of mappings from a set of lower level concepts to set of higher level, that is more generalized. So if you consider this particular example, the lowest level is the city, a little more higher level is state, a little more higher level is country, and finally all, maybe set of all countries, maybe universe or the earth. The same thing here, they have shown a mapping from set of low level concepts to set of high level thing, from street to countries. Okay. And here this particular figure, that is B, shows you a lattice for the time. So it's like from day you can get week or month, or again from month you can get a quarter, and from quarter a year, or you can get year from weeks to get directly. So this is just a lattice representation for time dimension. So again, this is another example for your concept hierarchy for price. So here it is like a set of $100 is grouped. So if you go to a higher hierarchy, it might be a set of $200, and finally $1,000. 0 to 1,000 will be the highest level hierarchy. So this next particular thing is how these measures are computed. So measures, it's like something numerical in nature, but how they are computed. So it's like your multi-dimensional point in a data cube can be defined by set of dimensional value pairs, dimension and value. For example, time is dimension, q1 is the value, location is dimension, Vancouver is the value for that particular dimension, item is dimension, computer is the value. Okay. So this dimensional value pair will be using for data cube measure. So data cube measure is exactly, actually a numeric function that can be evaluated at each point in the data cube space. Okay. So this measures can be organized into three categories, that is distributive, algebraic, and holistic, based on which aggregate function you used. We'll see one by one. These three are very simple. So an aggregate function is distributive in nature, that is the first type, if it can be computed in a distributed manner. So one example would be, there is a huge data set. Data this data set is partitioned into n sets, that is subsets, and for each of this partition you apply aggregate function. For example, there is a data which you partition into subsets. Okay. Sum, sum is an aggregate function. So instead of performing sum on the entire huge data set, you perform or implement this sum in smaller partitions. For all the n partitions, you do it on this subcubes, okay, and then aggregate it. Okay. So you can say that sum is a distributive aggregate function. Okay. So a measure is distributive in nature if it can be obtained by applying a distributive aggregate function. Okay. Only this much for distributive. Again, I will tell it, if aggregate function is distributive, if it can be computed in a distributed manner. So how to compute in a distributed manner? You have to take a huge data set, partition into n smaller subsets. Okay. For example, sum is considered as a distributed aggregate function because you can apply sum for each of these n subcubes partitions, and you can aggregate it to find the sum of the entire data set, the bigger data set. Next is algebraic. So an aggregate function is algebraic in nature if it can be computed by algebraic function with m arguments. Okay. So this m arguments is bounded positive integer, and each of this m arguments is obtained by applying a distributed aggregate function. Again, I will repeat, an aggregate function is algebraic if it can be computed by algebraic function which has m arguments, and this m is a bounded positive integer, so it's a positive integer with some limits, and each of this m arguments is obtained by applying a distributed aggregate function. For example, the example for this algebraic aggregate function is average. Okay. So this average can be computed by using two things, that is sum and count. Sum divided by count gives you average. Here both sum and count are distributed in nature. So sum I told you that it can be applied to each of the n partitions and aggregated finally to get the overall sum. Same with respect to count. You can count smaller parts and add all the counts to get the actual count of the entire thing. So both sum and count are distributive. You can use this distributive arguments to find average, which is algebraic. So a measure is algebraic if it can be obtained by applying an algebraic aggregate function. Okay. So the next final thing is holistic. So if you can tell an aggregate function is holistic if there is no constant bound. Okay. If you remember this the definition for algebraic thing is an aggregate function is algebraic if it can be computed by an algebraic function with m arguments where m is bounded positive integer. If there is no constant bound, it becomes holistic. Okay. So few examples for this holistic could be your mean, median. So mean and median is an example for your holistic measure. So the next thing is what are the different types of operations which can be performed on a data warehouse. So given a data cube and given certain of things, and if you are asked to perform certain operations, you should be able to, you should be in a position to do it. We'll see different types of operations one by one. The first operation here is, as you can see, roll up. This part, roll up is an operation. Okay. It is also called as drill up. Roll up or drill up means the same thing. It's like it performs aggregation on a data cube by climbing up the hierarchy for a particular dimension. Okay. So if you can see this particular example, okay, what is happening here in this particular roll up? Which thing is rolled up here? Is there something which is rolled up when you come? This is the actual thing. And when you perform this, it is being rolled up. Okay. Okay, sorry, my bad. I think the visible thing is not visible. Anyways, if you see this particular cube, let me just that particular thing. Okay, is this visible now? I have removed the presentation part. Presentation slide. Let me just. Okay. Now just concentrate on this particular roll up operation. So it's like roll up is performed on location dimension. Here it is with respect to the cities. So when you roll up, perform roll up or drill up on location, instead of cities, you are going one step higher in the hierarchy. So you end up getting data with respect to the country. Here maybe the sales are with respect to the cities. When you perform roll up, instead of this particular split up, you get 2000. That is with respect to the city. So that is one operation. The second operation which we would be interested in is drill down. This is the drill down operation. If you can see the original cube, it is with respect to the quarters. Here each quarter is 3 months. Okay. So here drill down on time. So from quarters to months, it is going one step down. Okay. That is one operation. It's like you're stepping down a concept of hierarchy of that particular dimension. Okay. So the next is slice and dice. These two are one more thing. So here, if you can see, this is the slice operation. This is the original thing. So the slice operation is performed. Slice, as the name itself suggests, you're slicing a part of it. Okay. So here, the slice operation is performed for time is equal to Q1. So you are slicing out the Q1 part from the cube so that you can concentrate on the data of Q1 instead of entire thing. You are just interested in how many sales or how much sales is happening or what items are sold, how much of each of the items are sold in Q1. So you slice that part, cut it off from the original thing. Okay, and this particular thing you can see dice. Here slice is with respect to one dimension, and dice is with respect to two or more dimensions. Okay. So this particular thing shows dice operation on the central cube by certain selection criteria that involves three things. That is location. If the location is Toronto or Vancouver, and time is equal to Q1 or Q2, and item is home entertainment or computer. So you're concentrating on this particular thing. So if something is like you want to concentrate on multiple dimensions at once, dice for us the operation which you have to perform. Okay. So here if you can see time is Q1 and Q2, only those data is viewed, and location is Toronto and Vancouver, only that particular thing is visible here, and you're interested only in home entertainment and computer, not on phone and security, so only that is viewed. So you can see the data with respect to only the selection criteria which you have used for this particular operation. So these are the few operations, OLAP operations, which you can perform on your data warehouse. Okay. So the next thing is there is something called StarNet query model for querying your multi-dimensional database. So we'll be using this StarNet model, which consists of radical lines emanating from a central point. Okay, this is one example. So this is the central point. So there are radical lines emanating from central point, as you can see, where each line represent concept hierarchy for a particular dimension. This is for time, this is for item, this is for customer, and this is for location. And each abstraction level in the hierarchy, just like day, month, quarter, and year. This is the abstraction level of a particular hierarchy which belongs to time. It's called a footprint. This is called a footprint. This particular thing is footprint. This is footprint, and this is footprint for your dimension time. And each footprint represents one abstraction level. Okay. So this shows a StarNet query model for data warehouse for a particular organization. So it contains 4 radical lines as you can see, which represents concept hierarchies for the 4 dimensions like your location, customer, item, and time. Okay. So each line represents footprints, which represents your, or each line contains footprints, which represents the abstraction level for the dimension. So as you can see, the time contains 4 footprints, each for day, month, and quarter and year. Similarly for the other things. Okay. So this concept hierarchies are in general used to generalize the data by replacing your low level values by higher level abstraction. Okay. Or it can also be used to specialize the data by replacing higher level with lower level. If you replace low level values by higher level values, it becomes generalizing the data. If you replace higher level abstractions with lower level values, it means you're specializing data. Here it's like you are digging deep, so you get some specialization about the data. So you're specializing data if you're replacing higher level by lower level values. So this is like just if it gives a business analysis framework for data warehouse design. or rather how business analysis can be done so that it is effective in general. Okay. So to design a effective warehouse, you need to understand and analyze the business needs, and you need to construct something called as business analysis framework. So we will be considering four different views for the design, that is top-down view, data source view, data warehouse view, and your business query view. So this top-down view is just allows the selection of the information which is relevant and necessary for the data warehouse. So the information matches the current and future business needs. So this particular design model, that is top-down view, allows you to select relevant information which is necessary for the data warehouse. And this information will be matching the current as well as future business needs. The second is the data source view. So this particular view exposes the information that is being captured, stored, and managed by your operational systems. Various levels for the detailed and accuracy purposes. So the next is your data warehouse view. This particular view includes your fact tables and dimension tables, which we have studied. So it's like it represents the information that is stored inside the data warehouse, and it also includes pre-calculated totals and counts, and also contains information such as source, data, date of origin, time of origin, etc. So these things are important to add your historical context to it. Okay, that is your data warehouse view. And finally, the business query view. So this is nothing but something which relates to the endpoint, end user's viewpoint. It is just data which is required or which is used by your end user. So there are four views uh, which has to be considered while designing a particular data warehouse. So this next is we'll just see the overall process or procedures in designing a particular data warehouse. So data warehouse can be built using different approaches. One is the top-down approach, the bottom-up approach, and a combination of both of these. So the top-down approach starts this particular top-down approach starts with the overall design and the planning for that particular data warehouse. So it is useful in cases of, especially in cases where technology is mature enough and is well understood. If you are using a well-established technology, which is not new, and you have sufficient literature for it, and there are multiple people who have knowledge on it, then top-down approach is recommended. Okay. And this bottom-up approach, it like starts with experiments and prototypes. You don't know much about the technology, so it's like it is useful in early stage business modeling and technology development. Okay. The bottom-up approach, it basically allows your organization to move forward at maybe less expense and to evaluate your benefits of the technology before making significant commitments. Like you are experimenting things. If I use this particular technology, how useful will it be? If I use some other technology, how useful it would be. So you are going one step at a time by experimenting the things and finally deciding which is useful. So if you want such kind of development, we will be using bottom-up approach. Okay. So the next possible thing is combine both, good of both. So this particular approach is advisable if an organization wants to exploit the planned and strategic nature of your top-down approach. Well, it also wants to retain the implementation and opportunistic application of the bottom-up approach. It wants both planned and strategic nature of top-down approach. It also wants to retain this implementation and opportunistic application of your bottom-up approach. If you want, if an organization wants both, then your combination is recommended. Okay. So, in your software engineering point of view, the design and construction of data warehouse may contain the following steps. This is nothing but, I mean, like you would have studied in last semester also. Like you have to plan something, you have to do the requirement study, you have to do the problem analysis, you have to design the data warehouse or database, you have to do the integration and testing, and finally the deployment. So this is the steps. First plan, do the requirement study, do the analysis of the problem in hand, choose which data warehouse design is suitable, do the integration and testing of the data, and finally deploy. So this is the step which is required in design and construction of a data warehouse by any organization. And there are two methodologies which the software systems can be developed. One is waterfall model and spiral model. I guess these two you would have studied in your software engineering or software. So it might be either SC or SDT, one for CC, one for IT. You might have studied either one of these. Okay. So the waterfall model performs a structured and systematic analysis of everything at each step rather. The waterfall model performs structured and systematic analysis at each step before proceeding to the next step. Okay. So which resembles your waterfall. It's like water will be falling one step at a time to the next step, from one step to the next step. Like you just pour water from top of the staircase. It's like it will go one step at a time. It won't directly go to the first uh, step. So the same process is followed here. It's like uh, structured and systematic analysis is performed at each step before proceeding to the next in the waterfall model. Next is the spiral model. It's like this particular method involves rapid generation of your systems with short intervals. Like if you want like rapid generation of functional systems with short intervals in between, and using this intervals, it's like you release the your product or something like that, release the updates. So if you want such kind of setup, you will be using this particular spiral method. Okay, so this spiral method is considered a good choice for your data warehouse development, especially for your data marts. Data mart, what is data mart? We have studied. So why it is a good choice? Because the turn around time is short. Modifications, if any, can be done quickly. And also your new designs and technologies can be adapted in a timely manner if you use your spiral method. So in general, The data warehouse design consists of following 4 steps. As you can see, the first step is choose which process to model. So if the business process is organizational and if at all it involves multiple complex object collections, so a data warehouse model is to be followed. If again I repeat, if the business process is organization is a huge organization, it's a big like university, and it involves multiple complex object collections. University will obviously involve multiple colleges. Like Mahe is involving MIT, MC, MCOPS, what is the Department of Commerce, etc. There are multiple colleges. So data warehouses recommended for Mahe. But if the process is departmental and not organizational, if the process is departmental and it's not organizational, and it mainly involved in focusing on analysis of one kind of business, then data mart model should be chosen. If the business is organizational and complex object collection is involved, then data warehouse. If the business process is departmental, which is focusing on single kind of business, then data mart is advisable. Next is choose the business process grain. That is, choose the fundamental and atomic level of data to be represented. For the that is in the fact table. See, this is the fact table. So choose the atomic level. Item key is the atomic level, maybe for your anything and everything related to the item. And time key is the fundamental, I mean basic atomic level, maybe for your item thing. Okay. So you have to choose which fundamental atomic level of data is to be represented in Slack table for a particular process. So for example, individual transactions and individual daily snapshots are the examples, okay, for this grain. The third is choose the dimensions that will apply to each Slack table. Okay. So dimensions which we have seen is your item, time, supplier, etc. Next, choose the measures. Measures already I told you. These are numeric measures. Okay. Like example would be the dollars sold, units sold, etc. Okay. So all this 4 things should be considered while you are designing a data warehouse. So this is like how this particular slide deals with how your data warehouse is considered or used for information processing, or rather what is the application of data warehouse and information processing. So there are 3 kinds of data warehouse applications, as you can see, that is information processing, analytical processing, and data mining. So this information processing, it supports basic statistical analysis, querying of the data, and reporting using multiple ways such as your reports, tables, charts, or graphs. So this is the information processing. Using this, you can query the data, you can report the data, or you can generate reports using your tables, charts, or graphs. So the current trend in the data warehouses, if you are using this information processing, is like to construct low cost or the current trend or the goals if you want to use your data warehouse for information processing would be constructing low cost web based tools which can be integrated with your web browsers so that anyone and everyone can perform this information processing. The second is analytical processing. It supports basic OLAP operations like we have just studied, like your slice and dice, drill down, roll up, etc. So it generally operates on historic data, both in summarized as well as your detailed forms. So what is the major strength of your analytical processing over your information processing? The major advantage or major strength of analytical processing over your information processing is the multi-dimensional data analysis. Here information processing might not be over multi-dimensional, but here it is for the it is the multi-dimensional data analysis of your data warehouse data. So finally, the data mining is one more application. So this supports your knowledge discovery by finding the hidden patterns. Okay, and it performs association, rule mining, classification, prediction, etc. So everything will be studying from Monday. That is when you start with the chapter number 5. PG ma'am will be taking for like 15 days from Monday. That is next 4 to 5 classes she will be taking. And that entire chapter is extremely problem based. Like every single algorithm will have multiple problems. And the entire chapter is very important because one is problem based and it's directly related to your lab also. To do something next programs in labs, you need the theory knowledge of that particular thing, like your a priori algorithm, DIC algorithm, and there are FP growth and decision tree. So many algorithms will come in next chapter. So this is with respect to how data warehouse is used for information processing, or rather the applications of data warehouse. Okay, and someone might ask one question such as like, do OLAP systems perform data mining? It's like, is data mining performed by OLAP systems, or OLAP systems are actually data mining systems? OLAP systems perform data mining, or OLAP systems are themselves data mining systems? So what is the answer? The answer could be something like, if someone asks, you should tell that the functionalities of the OLAP system, that is analytical processing and data mining, are disjoint. Okay. OLAP is mainly concerned with data summarization and aggregation. So OLAP tool is a data summarization and aggregation tool that helps you to simplify the analysis process. Well, data mining is discovery of patterns and hidden knowledge which is of your interest from a large amount of data. So these two are not one and the same, or rather OLAP systems are not data mining systems. The functionalities of these two systems are disjoint. This analytic is just a data summarization aggregation tool that helps to simplify data analysis, where data mining means discovery of patterns and knowledge which is hidden in large amount of data. Okay. So these two are different, and data mining involves much more deeper analysis than your analytical processing. So your data mining is expected to have a broader applications than your analytical processing. So this, I guess, is the last slide. The remaining we'll see on the Saturday's class. That might take another 1 hour again. So this is the last thing. Like, what is the progress? Like, we started from online analytical processing using single dimensions. Now we have reached the stage of multi-dimensional data mining. Okay. So it's like multi-dimensional data mining. It actually integrates OLAP with your data mining part to uncover the knowledge in from multi-dimensional database. Okay. So there are many different paradigms and architecture of data mining, which is used in multi-dimensional data mining, which is important for the following reasons. Okay. Rather, what is the advantage of multi-dimensional data mining, or what is the importance of it? So one is the advantage of the multi-dimensional data mining is the high quality of data in data warehouse. That is the major advantage. As you know, the data warehouse is constructed by following all the pre-processing steps, like your data integration, consistency, data cleaning, etc. So data warehouse consists of data on which you have already performed all this pre-processing steps. You did not perform them again. Okay. So this particular pre-processing steps require, I mean, it's quite costly or rather time consuming. So a data warehouse process is constructed by already following those steps, and it serves as a valuable source of high quality data. Okay. So that is one advantage. The second is available information processing infrastructure surrounding your data warehouse. Okay. So it's like the comprehensive information processing and data analysis infrastructure have already been built or will be systematically constructed surrounding data warehouse. So this helps you to make use of best use of available infrastructure rather than building everything from scratch. So that is one advantage of performing the multi-dimensional data mining over your data warehouse. One is high quality data is already available with all the pre-processing steps performed. Ready-made data is there, which serves as a valuable source of high quality data. The second advantage is the infrastructure is there, which you can make use to for this information processing. Okay. So you need not build the infrastructure from scratch. Okay. That is one advantage. The third is you can perform this OLAP based exploration. Okay. So as a user, you might want to traverse to database, select few of relevant data, might not be everything, few here, few there, analyze them at different granularities and different hierarchies. And you might also be interested in present knowledge as well as result in different forms. Okay. And to different uses. So all this is possible using your OLAP. And since this is multi-dimensional, the multi-dimensional data mining also provides your OLAP operations such as your drilling, filtering, dicing, slicing, etc. So you can like uh, do both of the things, that is together with data knowledge and this operations of this particular OLAP. It enhances the power and flexibility of the data mining. Okay. The second and last advantage is your online selection of data mining functions. Okay. So as a user, you might not be always uh, too specific, or maybe you don't even have any specific idea about what kind of knowledge you want. You don't know. You are just trying to explore. You yourself is not sure that what kind of knowledge you want to explore or mine. So you can select the data mining functions which you might be interested in, and do certain experiments before selecting one data mining operation which you want to, which could be beneficial for your area of interest or for your application. So this, but last two parts would be left apart from this. That is your data warehouse implementation. That is one thing, like how to implement data warehouse. And the last part would be data generalization by a concept called your attribute oriented induction. So these two things are left, which will be seeing in Saturday's class. Saturday will be 1 to 3. I have told 1 to 3, but again, like today, it might not uh, reach 2 hours. So maybe 1 or 15 minutes part is there. So with that, your chapter 4 will come to an end. So from Monday, ma'am will be starting from chapter 5. Okay. So with this, we'll end for today. So last two parts, that is section 4.4 and 4.5, we will be doing on Saturday. Any doubts? Any doubts till now? Any doubts? Okay. If no doubt, someone type something. Yeah, slides. I guess ma'am has already told, but still, if you are finding it necessary that you need the slides, maybe when she takes class on Monday, you tell her also. Maybe I will also discuss with her. She will today she is not there. She will be there on Saturday, so I will discuss with her also, and then maybe we can upload by next week. Okay. But you ask her also once when she is going to take class on Monday. From Monday she is going to take. So maybe when she asks you whether you have any concerns, maybe you can put this concern across to her. Because is not like chapter 1, 2, and 4 uploaded, 3, 5, and something else is not uploaded. It's like if you both should upload or both should not upload. It should be like this. It's not uploading doesn't mean that we are targeting something or targeting 6th IT. It's just that we want you to go through the textbook, because there is nothing much information on the uh, PPT. And if something comes outside this, so you should not tell the it was not there in PPT. It will be there in book. It will be there in the broad heading which is put in the PPT, but might not be explicitly put in the PPT. So most of you would end up just reading the PPT and just memorizing few things and coming and telling that this was not there in PPT. That we don't want to happen. That is the only reason, nothing else. Anyways, you ask her also. Maybe I will also tell her this Saturday when she's available in college. Maybe we can arrive at a conclusion. Anything else? And yeah, one, I will just stop this recording for now. And one thing with respect to um,